Here we go. All right. So Vin, good to
Hey,
see you,
hey,
buddy. Haven't
hey,
seen you in a
JM, what's
while.
up, man?
Opening day. You got hurrah, hurrah, hurrah. Giants have already won, in case it's a spoiler for anybody, but who knows when this is going to see the light of day.
Right.
But we have a really cool show today for you, a podcast or whatever we were calling it. Jared Sklar and Vinny will give you his bio and his, what do we call those, accolades?
Yes,
But
exactly.
I just want to make sure everybody knows coming to the Why I Rise podcast is as
Is
much
why
as
I
there's
rise.
exactly there's many different things in my life that make me rise up from bed and not sitting there and feel sorry for myself, whether it would be golf or whether it would be baseball or whether it be theater or film industry or any of the things that am passionate for and still do to this day as best to my ability. I want people to know that that's the kind of information and hopefully entertaining information that we're going to bring to you. So Vinny, welcome back from, we kind of took a little hiatus and now we've got our first one we recorded last week and we're recording another one tonight. So we're excited.
Mm-hmm.
So Vinny, take us away and let us know, introduce us to Jared Sklar.
Well, everybody, this is Jared. He is a trainer, and he is a trainer for Beachbody. He also teaches cycling strength, and he owns a place called Sun Cycle, and he's from Detroit. And I just want to ask you, Jared, you have an interesting way you got to where you are. Do you mind sharing, your hurdle to get to where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I'll give you the quick version of the long story. How about that?
Okay.
So originally, like you said, I'm from Detroit, Michigan, and my entire childhood, I really didn't. I liked sports. Obviously, right now, for those, I don't know if this is coming out on video or just audio, but I'm wearing a Tigers hat. Huge baseball fan, huge hockey fan. I played baseball and hockey growing up, a little bit of flag football and things like that. But was really into team sports, but didn't really place an emphasis on like personal fitness or never really paid attention to food. Like I always joked around, like if it wasn't fried, then it was like a salad, basically. I kind of looked at like nutrition growing up. So
I can appreciate that and
yeah.
enjoy it at the same time.
So as you can imagine, like I was kind of a bigger guy my entire childhood and up until my early adulthood, and I moved out to LA in 2014, and around 2018, 2019, I was in this like contact flag football league, and I went out for a pass, and I like went to make a cut, and I felt this like huge pain go down the back of my leg, like instant, like I could barely even walk. And coming from like that team atmosphere, team mindset, I was kind of like, I'll just rub some dirt on it and I'll play through it, sort of thing. Well, the next week it happened again, and the next week, and so it got to the point where I could like barely even walk. And so I was like, begrudgingly, I was like, I got to go to the doctor and like get this thing checked out. And basically the doctor was like, listen, if you want your hamstring to heal, he basically told me it was a bad hamstring pull. If you want your hamstring to get better, you have to stop playing football, you have to get some rest, and you have to like really like place an emphasis on recovery, stretching, things like that. And I was like, you know what? I want to get back on the football field. I want to get active again. And I don't want to be limping around into my 9-to-5 job that I had at the time. And so I was like, you know what? Fine. I'll take some time off. I'll recover and all this. And on the way out the door, he asked me if I had ever tried cycling before. And my mind, when he asked that, goes to like, and now it's funny because I am one of these people, but my mind goes to like, oh, like the guy taking up the whole road wearing neon spandex on my way to work that's making me late, right? And I say that jokingly. I don't take the whole lane, but that's where my mind goes. I'm like, no, I'm not really into cycling. That's not really my thing. I'm more of a team sports guy, like the whole masculine, like you couldn't catch me dead on a bike sort of thing. Listen, if you want,
which by the way, I don't understand why people don't think that's masculine. I mean, I've seen these guys at what do they call them, velodromes or where it's like a racetrack for bicycles, where they're standing still and they're holding the bike up with their legs, and centrifugal force or whatever, and then they're waiting for the other guy to go first, and it's like it's impressive. I mean, and those bikes, by the way, are like $9,000, $10,000, $12,000. So I don't understand that misnomer. Let's get that out of there right now. It's manly.
100%. listen,
Oh, he's about to transform.
I was a total novice to the whole thing, right? And so like that my mindset at the time, like you know, obviously I'm very different mindset now, but so I was like, you know what? If it helps me get back on the football field, if it helps me get back active and not limping around, like I'll try it. And so he basically was like, listen, go to the gym. You're a member of a gym, and at the time I was a member of LA Fitness, right by me. And he was like, listen, go sit on a bike for 45 minutes and like every 6 days out of the week and report back to me after a month. So I was like, okay, if it helps me feel better, I'll do it. So I like looked up the class schedule. I was like, I don't want to be caught dead in one of these classes. I'm gonna go like that again. This is like where my mindset was at the time.
Right.
And so I go look up the schedule. I go specifically during off hours when there's not a class going on. And so I go into this room. The lights are off. I'm in like the back corner, just like sitting on the bike for 45 minutes. And what I originally was like a chore to like go and sit on the bike, eventually like I started to get a little bit of momentum with it. And I started like putting like custom playlists together and like making my own workouts. And so after about like 3-4 days, I started to like kind of get a little bit of a rhythm with it. And over the month, I started to like actually develop like a passion for it and like looked forward to going to the gym, right?
Great.
And so a month passes, I go back to the doctor and he says, or I basically was like, listen, like he does his test, whatever, he does his analysis. And I say like, I can walk again. I'm feeling great, whatever. Like I'm feeling the best I've felt in a long time. And when they took my weight, I had lost 20 pounds over that month.
Wow.
And so I was like, you know, I'm feeling the best that I have in basically like years. Why don't I just keep going with this thing? And so basically I just like kept going to the gym, doing my own thing, making my own workouts. And after 6 months, I had lost 100 pounds and my life was like set on a completely different path. And it's funny because, you know, most of the time people see an injury or, you know, sickness or like whatever. You see all these things and you think, oh, that's going to be a negative in my life.
Right. That's a
with my experience with this specific experience, like something that could have easily been a negative ended up like catapulting me and shooting me forward and helping me create momentum in a way that I never thought was possible. So
okay, let me jump in here real quick because I want to add some thoughts.
Yeah.
Because what I was waiting for, which you didn't do, which is really awesome for the doctor, whoever you saw, was there was no mention of, well, you can lose weight by taking Ozempic, or you can lose weight by taking this pill, or you can, you know, we can do surgery on your hamstring and tighten it up for you. It was sort of like, you know, what a doctor used to say is like, get out and walk or get out and do something active and stop watching cartoons and eat healthier foods and stuff like that. But all those things seem to be like passe, even in today's society, which is getting much more wellness oriented and mindfulness. But the idea that there's something you can do to make your life better in that moment. And you were basically, even though you don't know it, but you were basically living the Parkinson's Wellness Fund mantra, which is, hey, look, if you want to work on your Parkinson's and ride a cycle, but you're afraid of going out, you know, in the open road for a multitude of reasons, whether it be balance, whether it be just drivers or you know, your general safety, then you can work at it at home and we'll help you get that piece of equipment. And it may take a little while to get it, but that's the goal. Is that our goal is to sit there and have you do it daily as opposed to working for a cure. And it's the same thing. I'm equating it very loosely to the great, and I use this term, coaching that doctor gave you, which is, you know, he said, just go do this and everything, I'm sure, in moderation, and check back with me. And you succeeded at it because you believed in it.
And you got self-motivated, and that's one of the things we try to communicate here. Is you were lucky enough, I hate to say it, to get hurt and have somebody push you, but you know, people push each other all the time, and it's hard to get motivated. And I remember you saying one time, stop finding excuses not to do something. And you're the example of it, and which is one of the reasons we have you on today. So, you know, how do you keep people coming back to your studio? And are there any tricks? Are there any whispers in the ear that we can latch onto?
Yeah, 100%. So I always say that like anytime anybody wants to make change, like it has to come from them, right? Like people can nudge you in a certain situation,
right?
But like a coach, a friend, a spouse, like maybe a spouse is a little bit different because you might live with them, but like they're not going to be there on the tough days and the mornings and the days when it's raining out, like when there's a million excuses to not lace up your shoes. Like they're not going to be there. It has to come with it from within most of the time, right? So I always say, like, especially within my situation, like my initial goal was to get back on the football field, get my hamstring healthy. Like that was my main goal. And then I lost all this weight. And so when that happens, like you have an inflection point, right? Like you can either stay the path because my hamstring is healed, or I can go back to my old ways, or I can either stay the path because it's making me feel great, or I can go back to my old ways because my hamstring is healed and that thing is already basically been accomplished, right? Like I've already accomplished my goal of getting back playing football and being healthy again, right? And so from there, it becomes like, why do you stay on the path? Like what is going to be like your big why? And so for me, like that's kind of evolved over the years, but a little bit about my, without getting too far into like my family history and things like that. My family history on my dad's side, we have I guess you could call it a trend of the men on that side of the family having issues like heart issues and cardiovascular disease. So like my uncle passed away at a very young age. I think he was like 39. My grandpa on that side, my great uncle on that side. So like, and my dad had so basically like I had known this, and then right after I lost all the weight and went through this transition, basically my dad went to the doctor and realized basically the diagnosis was that he had to have quadruple bypass surgery. And so this was like right in the middle of all these things happening. And I fly back to Michigan. My dad's in Michigan still. I fly back and I was like, and I saw him go through all this and knock on wood, he has made such like huge life changes and talk about like having a carrot in front of you, right? But like, he's made such changes, and that was what 5-6 years ago now. But as he was going through this surgery, I went back to visit him and I saw what that was like. And I'm thinking to myself, like in that moment, like in the hospital, I'll never forget it. I'm like, it was right around Halloween that year. And I'm back in Michigan, and I'm like, if I don't maintain what I've built, if I don't maintain this weight loss and kind of like this momentum that I built, like the pendulum could very easily swing in the opposite direction. And my kind of like family trend could very much be a story that I could end up going down. Right. So like, that was a big motivator for me. And then obviously like I became a cycling instructor, and I've done Ironmans and all these endurance races, and now I'm a coach. And so now it's not just about me. Now it's about helping other people get to their goals, right? And motivating them to get across their own finish line. So like, I know that was kind of like a long roundabout way of saying it, but like it starts with you. But the more people that you can help down the line, in my opinion, the better, and the more impact we can make as a whole. So those are the things that motivate me, and becoming the best version of myself and helping the most people are kind of like my North Stars for sure.
Let me ask you this question, if I may, because the people hopefully watching this are people with Parkinson's and caregivers of people with Parkinson's, and or people that might be wanting to get some information. I ironically had a lady from my physical therapy place call me to talk about boxing and the benefits of boxing and Parkinson's, which I'm a huge advocate for. And if you cycling, I think is amazing. I look at these guys and gals, I mean, men and women, taking these bikes up dirt roads that are just like straight up. Because they had to get up there somehow, because when they come by you on the way down, I'm like, well, that would be the fun part. But then they're going super fast. And I'm like, how do they do this? I mean, granted, somebody who maybe at various stages of Parkinson's, maybe if they're early on, they can jump on the bike and get that cycling. But one of our biggest advocates in the whole Parkinson's world is Vinny, who was a very successful cyclist, American cyclist. And I don't know if he was in the Tour de France or whichever. He won a leg somewhere. I know he was. I think my information is correct. What would you tell a Parkinson's patient? If you were to give them 3 tips or some advice to say, listen, if you're going to go ride the bike at this particular diagnosis and where you are, here's what I'd recommend you do. This is universal for everybody.
Yeah. So again, like I'm not a doctor, and so it's hard to necessarily prescribe one thing or another. But what I would say in general is like, and I think that this goes along with many different goals or many different different exercises and things like that, modalities. Start slow and build up, right? Like you have to, like anything that you do, like if you have big goals, right? It's sometimes hard to think about that huge big goal that you have down the line and like think of all the things that you have to do. It's easier to break it up into bite-sized pieces, start slow and progress further, right? So like for example, like the weight loss journey that I was talking about earlier, I didn't set out, and obviously it kind of happened on accident, but I didn't set out to lose 100 pounds, right? I set out to heal my hamstring, and then I lost 20 pounds, and then 40 pounds, et cetera, right? So, like, I think that, the crossover would be there. It's like, if you like have big goals of getting into cycling, start small, go to a cycling class. Cycling classes are way easier than on the road, at least from a balance perspective, which might help for somebody with Parkinson's, because the bike isn't going to fall over, sort of thing. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it could be like a good entry point. And then like, say you get comfortable on the stationary bike, then graduate onto the road bike and things like that. And to your point, I mean, at least, where we live in Southern California, there's mountains everywhere, right? But then there's also a
Right.
lot of flat roads. So like there's different ways that you can build up on the flat road and then go to like smaller hills and then graduate up into the mountains. And then, I know a lot of people are into mountain biking and things like that. So there's the thing about cycling is that there literally is a bucket for every single person, whether you're a complete novice and getting into it to, kind of like, you were talking about Tour de France. The Southern California in particular is like a prime Tour de France training ground because of the mountains that we have around here. So, but again, like if you're not in Southern California, if you're in like where I'm from in Michigan, it's pretty much flat everywhere. One of the things that's cool about cycling is that you can turn the gear up on, even if you're on a road bike, you can turn the gear up and you can make it more challenging, even if you're on a flat road. So there's different workarounds for things, but I'd definitely say like start small, and then take bigger bites of the apple as you go.
A memory comes up. Sorry, Vinny, if you were thinking of jumping in, but a
No.
memory comes up. Much like when you played competitive flag football, I played a lot of competitive softball. Now, granted, it was beer league competitive softball, so I'm not going to make it sound like I was a super, first baseman out there, but I loved it. And I mean, it was really an opportunity for me to escape from anything that may be on my mind, whether good, bad, or indifferent. But I focused on the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one night we were warming up, and there was a guy that had come on to our team, and I just had a vibe about this guy. Like whatever the reason is, I didn't really care for him. Like I don't think he did things right. Like he didn't. You fundamentally warm up, so you click that brain again, so the brain gets the muscle memory going. You're like, oh, we're going to throw a baseball, and oh, we're going to stretch, and we're going to do this, and we're going to run some wind sprints, anything to get loosened up. And when you're non-professional or a non-athlete like yourself, Jared, it's hard to not pull a hamstring or something like that. But one night I had to move over to third base to cover somebody who was not there that night, and this guy is crushing. He's hitting fungos. He's hitting like little grounders. So the second baseman can scoop the ball, throw it to first base, and get that rhythm down, which he hasn't probably done in a week.
Mm-hmm.
And so this guy is like smashing the ball. And something in my head goes, you better take a step back because this guy's going to he's going to hit a rocket at you at third base, and you got to be ready to. And I was afraid he was going to come up and hit me in the face. Mm-hmm. So I was focusing on that. And when he hit the ball, I put my hands in front of my glove hand down, and I put my hand here to catch the ball. And the thing bounced off the dirt and smashed into my finger right at this point. And the nail and all the meat behind it went straight up in the air, like a 90-degree angle.
Oh.
And so they take me to the hospital, and I'm all bandaged up, and the guy is like looking at me, and he's like checking it out. And he's like, yeah, he goes, I'm just going to put some pressure on this. We're going to push that nail back down, and then I'm going to wrap you. And I said, okay. So while he's doing this, there's no Novocaine or whatever, and I'm just dealing with that bit of pain. And I kind of just like honestly said to the guy, hey, when do you think I can get back out there on the field? And he goes, what do you mean? I go, when can I go get back playing softball? And he goes, dude, you just had your fingernail come straight up to a 90-degree angle, like the opening of a lid of a trunk of, a hood of a car. And I said, yeah, I understand that, but I'm bandaged up. What's going to take it? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 12 weeks? And he goes, do you get paid to play? And I said, no, I do not. And he goes, I wouldn't worry about it. And it was just literally like that kind of philosophy is where somebody is not bullshitting you. And they're just basically saying, you know what, dude, you're lucky you have your finger. I mean, at the speed that ball was hit, and think about somebody who wasn't prepared to, understand how to field that ball and gets hit in the face. I mean, it's like breaks a orbital bone or whatever it may be called.
Mhm.
So I don't want people getting in there and realizing that you hear this a lot. Like, I used to be a great cyclist, but I can't anymore.
Mhm.
Well, don't go backwards, go forward, like you said, and go forward with a new plan,
Mhm.
because everything becomes a memory at a certain point.
Yeah.
And I think that the idea of you can't, cycle the way you used to cycle, or, I can't play softball the way I used to play softball, but I can still go out and find something that's fun to do, even if it's wiffle ball.
100%. Yeah, I think like to your point, like a lot of these a lot of these things that we like to do, like we don't get paid for them. Like I guess I'm kind of in this unique situation where I've kind of become a coach, and now I am like my profession is fitness and helping people get to their goals. But a lot of the time they're just passions, and so it's about finding the fun in it, right? Like I have a half Ironman coming up. I'm doing a half Ironman in Oceanside next weekend. And it's so funny how you get people who go out there and like, people get the competitive edge. People are, some people, depending on, how tenured they are and how competitive they are, they'll start talking a little bit of smack, like, as they pass you or whatever, like kind of tongue in cheek. And I'm like, I'm just trying to do the best that I can for myself, and vice versa, right? Like if I'm passing somebody, I'll make sure to like just say hi to them, like keep up the good work. Like I'm the motivator guy out on the race course.
Yeah.
So like contrary to how some people act out there, but again, like fitness should be fun, and I think that this is me getting on my soapbox a little bit.
Okay.
Wait,
It's your time.
Coming from not in the fitness industry and getting in the fitness industry, it's so funny how especially with social media, like the fitness industry gets like such a bad rap because like you get these influencers who are all look at me, look what I can do, look at all these things, right? And so it becomes very like it almost seems like a selfish thing with the fitness industry. Like you get, like I said, these influencers who are like, look at me, where in my opinion, like fitness should be the most selfless profession out there, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, sure, I like to hype myself up and I'm proud of the things that I'm able to do, but it's more about helping my clients get to the place that they want to get to. And that is the bigger feather in my cap. It should be, look at what my clients are able to do. Look at how far that they've come. Look at what they've achieved. And so, and again, I don't know, I just got on this side tangent, but it just like made me think of it. It's like, it should be like the most like selfless profession out there, in my opinion, because you're able to give back to the community. So yeah, I don't know what just made me think of that, but I kind of just went on a little tangent there.
but I really do think the most important thing you said, because people, especially nowadays, are very impatient,
Mhm.
and they expect automatic, instant gratification. But starting out slow, I mean everything, because all of a sudden you notice like, oh wow, I've been on the bike for 50 minutes. I didn't realize, because before you'd be counting the minutes to get to 45, and then it just gets easier and easier and easier for you. And just really, like you said, just getting started, finding the excuse, ignoring the excuse not to do something.
Yeah.
And that's what we keep trying to talk. We had a guest who was a runner,
Mhm.
and it was the same. He had the same philosophy where he has Parkinson's, and he kept catching his toe on the pavement, and he'd actually fall forward. And he just started practicing heel to toe, which he had to force himself to do. But he said, next thing you know, I'm not thinking heel to toe, I'm just running.
Right.
But you got to be patient with yourself and start slow. You can't just jump in the pool and beat Phelps. But JM, I just got a thing on my screen that people are sharing videos of the jet fighters flying over Pasadena.
Oh, you're kidding me.
I just saw it. Yeah, good old opening day.
Yeah, I gotta love baseball, man. It's so stuck in great old habits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna jump on something there. Oh, Vinny, to your point, you said about instant gratification, which is to Jared's point earlier, but I think Jared also gave you the nugget of instant gratification, which is if you say, I'm going to run a 26 marathon, and you try to run 26 miles on day one, if you just say, I'm going to get to the end of the curve, there's your instant gratification. But it's also part of your plan. Now, I should practice what I preach, because, I'm the first one to give up. I hate running. And everybody's challenging me on this podcast to run, and I'm all for it. But now I'm starting to get, and it's like Jared said, I'm always looking for an excuse. Some of the things I don't mean I'm always looking for an excuse. He said he was always looking for an excuse, but I do the same thing too. And it's sort of like with this walking and the idea that nobody's going to come out of the woodwork and just go, I'm here to take care of you. Do whatever you stand on my back and I'll run for you, but we'll build your legs, and here's a machine that will do this for you. It's literally like you got to choose what you want to do. And I try to explain, like, to people how I seem to not be so pissed off about Parkinson's, or seem to not be so disappointed in life or whatever, is that I had a great life. I've had a great life. I still am having that great life with my wife and kids and Vinny and now Jared and Russell and the people that matter. I've had the pleasure of working out with Jimmy Choi, who I think is one of the most amazing persons, who also happened to have Parkinson's. He's a fit. Do you know him, Jared? Jimmy Choi?
Yep.
Yeah, Jimmy's amazing. And he said to me, and I probably said this in previous podcasts, but it fits this one perfectly. He said, have you told everybody that you have Parkinson's? And I said, well, I'm in the entertainment industry, so I don't want everybody to know my business, kind of thing. But I said, I've told, like, the people that matter, and like my boss and my family and my friends. And he said, no, well, don't hold back. Tell everybody. And I said, well, what's your philosophy behind that? He goes, well, your circle of friends will get tighter. And the people that are not really, that are more acquaintances, are not really down with you to walk you to the end of, the bridge, if you will, and be by your side, then you don't really need them. I mean, they can still be friendly. They can still be an acquaintance, whatever you want to call them. But in the end of the day, we can't waste our time, worrying about things, and we can't waste our time not doing things because we're worried about what we can't do. And that's why I think a coach like yourself, for anybody in the Parkinson's world, would benefit from it, because the idea is that you're going to give them an alternative. You know how many times I've heard, don't bite off the big chunk, but take smaller steps and you'll get to your goal quicker? About 1 million times. And I just remembered it right when you said it.
Yeah. Right.
Because I'm just like, oh, that's right. That's a great philosophy. Why don't I fucking follow that philosophy? And then I forget about it.
Yeah. I'll tell you a story that I feel like aligns very well with this whole thing. And just because it's very recent, so it came to mind. So I'm affiliated with another charity for pancreatic cancer research. My grandfather passed away from pancreatic cancer in 2000.
And by the way, just to add insult to injury, I'm losing a buddy to that right now. I mean, he's doing everything he possibly can, and I never knew how. And I'm just going to say this out of respect for your grandfather. I never knew how deadly, and I use that word with all capital letters, that is. That's like, I've never seen people bristle and go, oh. I'm like, what? I mean, it's pancreatic cancer. It's just like any other cancer, isn't it? No, it's not. And it's lethal. Go ahead, my friend. Go ahead.
My grandfather was one of the most, like, when you talk about, like, what shape I was in, and like the bad shape, like overweight, out of shape in like around that time and throughout my whole childhood, my grandfather was the complete opposite. He was on the treadmill every single day, like even into his 80s, running like 2 miles on the treadmill every single day. So very good health. November of 2007, he got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and by it was April, he passed away, April 6th. So ever since then, I've been very involved with pancreatic cancer research and charities and things like that. At the time, actually, you talk about how lethal it is. At the time, it was only like 5% 5-year survival rate, so like very minuscule. Over the last what was that, 18 years ago, they've more than doubled it, so it's about 13%. Still very still a very low number, but they are making waves for it. But anyway, so sorry, I didn't mean to like diminish.
No, go ahead. I mean, this is awesome, because this is what I'm dealing with my friend, and it's just like the same thing.
Yeah,
it's hard to hear, but I appreciate you talking about it.
But that's the whole thing, is like with that, all of these charities, like the more people talk about it, the more people start to pay attention. And so last week I just did a charity event. I've been raising money for these charities basically for the last 18 years, and I did it's called a 4x4x48. So essentially the idea is you run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours straight. So you end up
I'm out.
Yeah. So you end up running 48 miles over 2 days, essentially.
Oh God, yeah, that's nothing, right?
And so, kind of to your point, what you were just talking about, right? Like, if you look at it as I have to run 48 miles over the next 2 days, like that's a big pill to swallow, right? Like that's going to be
Yeah.
tough. But I can wrap my head around, oh, I only have to run 12. I only have to run 4 miles 12 times. Like that's a little bit more of an easy pill to swallow. And then you break it up by run, right? And so it's very funny. You talk about the name of the podcast, Why I Rise, right? It's easy to run at 4 p.m. It's a little bit more challenging to run at 8 p.m. during the 8 p.m. slot. What's hard is running at midnight and 4 a.m. when everybody else is sleeping, when it's cold out, when there's every excuse. Nobody's going to know the difference if I run or not, right? You have to think about why I rise. When my alarm clock goes off at 3:45 in the morning, like I'm doing this for a reason. I'm raising money for a cause. I'm trying to spread the word. I'm trying to help, like trying to be a beacon to help motivate other people, right? And so like really channeling in on that why when things do get hard is really important. So I don't know, kind of just like the themes that we were talking about really just kind of like reminded me of that, because that was my life over 2 days from last Wednesday to Friday. And like, it's good to do hard things because it builds that self-confidence and proof that you can, blow through those barriers that you set for yourself and things like that. But also like, it's a good reminder that like, if you build momentum, if you can break things up into small bite-sized pieces, you can accomplish way more than if you think, oh, I have to go 1,000,000 miles in 2 days, sort of thing. So
That's so spot on, and it's really funny because when I was early in my marriage, Heidi and I got married in '96, so it's 29 years. So we decided to split a trainer, like to share a trainer. So I would go Tuesday, Thursday, she would go Monday, Wednesday. We'd have Friday off, and then the weekend. And I remember going, and he'd be like, "All right, let's just do some standard push-ups, but I want to show you where you can do them with the, and I'm like huffing to get to 10. And he goes, "What's the matter?" And I said, I can't get past 8. He goes, "Well, then don't." I said, "What?" He goes, "Just use the numbers 1 through 5."
mm-hmm.
And you do 5, and then you do 5, and then you do 5. And it seems different for some reason. For some reason it works, because you're not like, fuck, I'm only halfway there. Excuse my swearing, everybody. I'm a little baseballed up tonight. But the idea that you're just, I got to go another 500 feet. And it just doesn't seem doable, or your brain is doing everything in its power to get you to stop and just stop running because you're going to die. I mean, it's there to tell you all these things that are not true. And I say that because I believe that, and listen, I will tell everybody on every episode, I am not perfect. I'm far from it. I do practice as much as I can preach, but usually I'm a little bit more preachy because I want to get the word out quicker. And I have a modicum of relationships within the industry. But what I do is I believe that there are ways we can heal ourselves, and there are ways we can heal each other. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you isolate, you lose your community. And even though Vinny will pick up the phone and call me just to see how I'm doing, and we'll talk about a podcast, or we'll occasionally get an opportunity to go out for a couple of drinks, it's the fact that I know that he's there, and that he would, this is a guy who picked me up after my heart surgery and literally picked me up. But I mean, took me home and no questions asked. And, we've gone through a lot, but the idea is that he's got the same kind of group of community on his side. So we have our communities, and we have our community of each other. And I just beg people, even though you don't feel like you look good, or you don't feel like you feel good, or you don't think you can walk to the door, just try it, just do it, and give yourself a reward. I don't care if you walk up 6 blocks, and at the end of the 6 blocks, it's an ice cream shop, and you get a double scoop on a cone and come back. I don't care. Yeah. I say, do it, because you have to enjoy right now. Mm-hmm. And that's why we enjoy doing this podcast, is because we get up knowing that there's another opportunity for us to talk to somebody who might shed some light on Parkinson's, or might shed some light on food, or might shed some light on the microbiome in the gut, and all these things that are being bantered back and forth in the Parkinson's world, amongst others, cancers and Alzheimer's. And, it's I implore you, if you get an opportunity to talk to somebody that has Parkinson's, ask them how they're doing, take them out for a coffee and donut, watch a ball game with them, give them something to go and do, because it's very easy when your body tells you, just sit on the couch, man, I'll take care of you. And it will not, because it needs you to take care of it as much as it needs to take care of you.
And that goes to everybody, beyond Parkinson patients. We all tend, especially now with everything being, you DoorDash everything, and it's very, very easy to get sedentary. Is that sedentary?
Sedentary.
Jared, I don't know if this is a common practice, but one of the motivators when I had a trainer was he made me pay for five workouts in advance. Is that common?
I think it is within like the personal training industry. I do it a little bit different where, well, we obviously have, so my kind of, the way I break things out is I have my cycling classes. So that's like for my cycling studio on the beach, in Santa Monica with the Sun Cycle. That's where, I'll do like a cycling class with the headphones. Everybody's listening to music right there on the beach. That people buy like packages, or they can buy single rides.
Mm-hmm.
Also a triathlon running cycling coach. And with that, it's more of like a monthly fee compared to like buying sessions, because a lot of my athletes that I work with and just clients that I work with are all over the place. So I have people in LA, but I also have, clients in Canada and the UK and the East Coast and St. Louis and all that.
And can people find out about this on jaredsklar.com?
Yep. So jaredsklar.com is like my my coaching business. So that's like the triathlon, running, cycling, all that. And then thesuncycle.com is for anybody who would want to ride any of the cycling classes in Santa Monica if they're ever in Los Angeles.
So it's thesuncycle.com.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
And Vinny, I have a question for you. Did this trainer that was charging you the 5 sessions in advance? Was he working under the back of his truck?
No, that was my motivation. Because
I will say, depending on where you go, I think that is a pretty common practice. Like,
oh, you asked him to do that, or he advised you that he was going to do that?
No, when he used to take payment at the end of the, I just pay him at the end of the session, and then I kept canceling sessions.
Oh, you're like me, buddy.
Yeah. So then, I finally called him and he goes, we're going to have to do things a little bit differently. I go, what's going on? He goes, I need 5 sessions in advance. That way you'll show up.
Yeah, he's right.
And he is absolutely right.
Did you show up?
I did, of course.
It worked out both sides then. There you go.
Yeah, it worked out for all of us. Yeah, he was great. He ended up, he was a great, I wish I could remember his last name, but he was a great trainer and a really, really good looking black man. And he got a recurring role on NCIS because he looked.
Is he the guy with the goatee?
White hat and the what?
I used to watch the show. How many years ago was this?
About 10.
Oh, okay, maybe not.
You can tell I not exactly have the beach body, but and then he stopped training because his call sheets were all over the place. Wow. And I actually ran into him. My wife and I were looking at the same house he was, and it was just great to see him. And he complimented me on gaining the weight back. I'm not in the best shape, but I am down about 15 pounds from my zenith, from when I was at my heaviest.
This is what I say to anybody who is interested in weight loss, or if they're going down a weight loss journey. There are a million ways to create a flash in the pan. You can lose 20 pounds very quickly. Like professional boxers, obviously they're professionals. It's what they do for a living. Professional boxers literally are trained in cutting water weight over a 24-hour period right before a fight, and then drinking a lot of water and gaining it right back, right?
How do they do that?
A lot of the time they put on like these sweatsuits that are basically like, and again, I'm not a boxer, but like just from what I've seen, they'll put on like these sweatsuits. They're like plastic basically, and they do a bunch of cardio. And
that's like that Rocky used to put the plastic bag over his shirt.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay,
so
I got you.
Put out all the water weight, they cut weight, and they basically dehydrate themselves right before a fight. They do their weigh-ins, and then they drink a bunch of water or whatever. What I was going to say though is that, 99% of the population, we want something that's going to be sustainable over a long period of time, right? It is easy to get a flash in the pan. There's a million diets out there that can help you lose 5 pounds in 5 days or whatever. I don't know, a week or two, whatever. Like, I'm not interested in losing weight and gaining it right back and doing the whole pendulum thing. Like, I think most people, like, kind of what we were talking about earlier, like, a lot of people want instant gratification.
Yeah.
The long haul is where everything is, right? And so, like, if you can lose a bunch of weight and keep it off, like you were saying, Vinny, like that's such a huge win, because most people, they'll ride the freaking pendulum and they'll lose weight and then they'll gain it back. And same with just fitness in general, right? So, like, remaining consistent is the real challenge, and I think that that's something that should be admired for sure. So.
Yeah, I agree. And I've been in experience many times, but the one that really made me, where I didn't buy anybody's food, I didn't have to buy anybody's this or that, or pay, because it's like somebody who's going to say, $100 or whatever the going rate is now, and I'll train you, but this is what I'm going to do. This is what I promise I will do. This is where the goal that we're going to set, but we're going to put that away in this envelope, because right now we're going to master you just sitting on the bike, or you figuring out your comfort level. And that kind of stuff I don't mind paying for. But somebody's like, yeah, buy all these powders and drinks and take all these things, and you're buying like $1,000 worth of vitamins and minerals, that it's like, this is a 2-week supply, so you should be good till, and I'm like, I don't got that kind of money. I mean, and that's another thing, is that a problem, and that's one of the issues that we're trying to go head on, and why we want to buy things for people and help them along the way. And with the Parkinson's Wellness Fund, is that stuff is expensive, and insurance is cutting sometimes more and more, or doctors are not doing the same things, to go to a concierge service, or they don't want to take insurance. So it's a very odd time. And then, other things are going on right now that are extremely odd. But, the point that, somebody can say to you, and this is a doctor that I respected, and he said to me, JM, he said, look, when I met you, you weighed 100, and I think I weighed 150 pounds when he met me in my early 20s, when I moved to Los Angeles. He said, I now weigh you in your 214. So he goes, I don't know, I forget what he said, how many years was, and he goes, you're eating way too much craft service on the set. And I said, yeah, of course I'm eating licorice and candy bars and donuts and muffins and coffee. And so he said, do this. I think it was for 30 days. I had, cut out carbs, so bread, all the cereals, all that kind of stuff, high protein diet. But what he had me do is, he's like, if you eat 2 chicken breasts, eat 1. You don't need 2 chicken breasts. Mm-hmm. But my experiences and my training through years in the entertainment industry and the food, is that there was always massive amounts of food. So there's more food, I might as well eat it. Mm-hmm. And it sets a bad precedent, because, not everything is a healthy choice, although they're one of the industries that is very concerned about health foods. Mm-hmm. But the idea that I lost like 18 pounds in 30 days mm-hmm. is, to your point. I mean, if you need to be somewhere, you can get there. You got to put a little sacrifice in, but in 30 days you can be ready for the Oscars or whatever. And that was with no working out. That was just eating healthier, no sodas. I cut out sodas. I cut out booze and wine.
Yeah. Well, that's actually another kind of like secret. I don't know if it's secret is the right word, but like another like thing that people don't necessarily talk about. And I guess I kind of glossed over it too. So maybe I'm contributing to the problem. But when I got into cycling, I also changed my diet massively, because I was thinking, like, if I'm going to be spending 45 minutes on the bike, I don't want to turn around and eat an entire pizza and like gain everything back, right? So like that was when I kind of like, I got into intermittent fasting a little bit. I've kind of pulled back from that a little bit since I've been getting into endurance sports, and I have to be consistently eating while I'm doing these sorts of activities and things like that. But something that, like, if people are interested in losing weight, like 80% of that should come from diet, right? Because at the end of the day, you burn a lot of calories. And again, it depends on which workout you're doing. And I could probably talk about this for hours and talk you guys the ear off. So I apologize if I'm rambling a little bit, but
no, go ahead. We're going to leave, but just keep talking. All right.
Most of the time, depending on the workout, you're probably not burning as many calories as your smartwatch says you are. So like it's all about think about what you're doing the rest of the day. It's called basically non-exercise calorie burn essentially. And so that's like, are you walking around? When you were talking about earlier, like if you're gonna go get some food, are you walking to the restaurant or are you ordering Postmates? Like little things like that. Like that's where a lot of the calorie burn can be attributed to if you do want to lose weight, but also like it's the intake of calories as well, which is like a huge part of the equation. So
Sorry, Vinny, hold on. Go just get this. Oh, go ahead, Vin.
I just wanted to ask you, you were shaking your head while JM was talking about powders and supplements. Any guidance in that area you can provide?
I'm not a nutritionist, so I say this with a grain of salt, which is kind of a funny pun considering that we're talking about powders and grains. Um, how do I put this lightly? Um, in my opinion, the fitness industry is always just trying to sell you as many powders and supplements and everything that they possibly can. In my opinion, like high protein is what you're looking for. So if you drink a protein shake and things like that, like, and again, this is me just speaking from my own personal experience. Creatine has had a lot of science behind it, and it's probably one of the most like the safest supplements that you can take. So I always recommend creatine to a lot of my clients who are trying to build muscle, and there's also cognitive benefits as well. But aside from that, like there's a million different things, and you listen to like, I mean, we're on a podcast now, but like you can listen to a million different podcasts when it comes to the health space, and they'll try to sell you a million different. And I don't want to call out any in particular, but I'll just say like that. Like there's a million different things that they'll try to sell you. Do you necessarily need all of them? Like, would you feel any different if you didn't take them? Depends on the person, but me personally, I just stick to like protein powder if I have like a really big workout to help help with that the protein synthesis and muscle synthesis, and then creatine. Those are really the only two things that I really stick to on a consistent basis.
That's cool. Thanks for sharing that.
I have a question about this term that I've heard used and bantered back when they're talking about supplements, because same thing about supplements is you need to buy, if you're going to do this particular thing, there's a stack of supplements that you need to support you in whatever you're doing. But this term I always thought was, I don't want to say an oxymoron, but I thought it was definitely something that was strange, which is pharmaceutical grade supplements.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, isn't it pharmaceutical grade drugs or pharmaceutical grade supplements? What does that mean? Does that mean that pharmacists can prescribe them, or is that a science and medical type of diagnosis?
This could end up taking us down a really deep rabbit hole, but at least from what I understand, again, I'm not a nutritionist. To be a supplement in the market, there's certain testing that you have to do, but it's, from my understanding, very limited. So like if it's pharmaceutical grade supplements, like there's probably a higher standard, but to my knowledge, like if you're taking like a pre-workout, for instance, like kind of a low bar as far as like testing for things like that. Again, this is just from what I've heard from within the industry. Again, I'm not a nutritionist. This is not necessarily.
No, but it's obvious. And again, I'm not bashing any of these people at all. I'm just saying that I marvel at some of the things too. And a lot of it is that it is, I don't know why, but being healthy or getting yourself to a point where you're able to constantly produce in society and help society along shouldn't cost a fortune to be that way. Now, if you wreck your body and then you got to get back to a certain thing, then you got to pay the price. It's like, insurance. But, the idea that, you can go to GNC and the guy behind the counter is going to tell you everything you need to know about these supplements. And you're like, I'm sure that guy is not a pharmacist. I'm sure that he's not a chemist. I'm sure that he's a salesman, and that's what his job is to do. So it's hard when there's so much information to try to find the right way to go. And I think that's ultimately what Vin and I are kind of asking is that if you were advising us, especially in the sense of, people will tell me, like, I swear to God, the first day, and this is the only guy who basically said this to me, which wasn't that I had to go out and buy something that I wouldn't ordinarily buy, we bumped into I literally was just coming back from the doctor's office, and Heidi was driving, and we were living in the Santa Clarita Valley at the time. And I was just in a daze. I was in a fog because I had just been told I have Parkinson's. And I'm 46 years old, and I'm thinking, what have I done? You know, what, you know, I'm just going through all this stuff. And we bump into our old trainer,
Oh
the guy
wow.
that we used to split up, you know, split Tuesdays, Thursdays, Monday, Wednesdays with. And he kind of like, we got the vibe that he didn't really want to talk to us. Like, I don't know if he was mad at us because we stopped training, but after a while it was just getting too expensive for us. You know, we needed to cut back. But I told him that, and he just looked at me and he goes, get a crock pot, put a bunch of food and vegetables in it, and eat out of that crock pot to save your life. And
Wow.
I'm like, well, wait a minute. You know, it's like, Buddha, did you just give me something I don't know? Because the point is now, and this was in 2012. Since then, I've been to places where like Heidi's, you know, place of business will show you how to cook with a crock pot, because I guess the health benefits of not having all the additives and all the stuff, and cooking it with oils, and because it all just cooks in the juices in the water, and it's amazing food. I don't know if you've ever had like the Instapot food, Vin.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely. Yep.
And it's even funny. My buddy Rob Massey, who I think you know, Vinny, right? You know Robbie, right? He's now living in Texas, and he's a bachelor. He's a helicopter pilot and does tours. And he's like doing these videos of him like making something new in the crock pot. I'm like, where were you like 12 years ago when I was talking about this? I mean, it's like, maybe I would have stuck to it if all you guys would have been in it. But you know, what do you say for the idea of, it's Jared, is one thing is the food because it's the fuel, but it's also the choices that you make to what you do with the food. Because it's clearly that we can ruin food, you know, just by pouring lots of dressing on a salad, you know, and iceberg to begin with, which I don't even know if it constitutes as lettuce anymore.
Here's what I'd say from a food standpoint, and it's funny because for my triathletes and my endurance sports, the athletes and clients that I work with who are doing marathons and things like that, for the most part, from a diet standpoint and point of view, if you're going to shop at the grocery store, for instance, stick to the outside of the grocery store. The outside aisles, that's the meat section, the fish section, the vegetables, like anywhere around the eggs, the dairy, like any of that sort of stuff is always on the outside.
Yeah, and the produce. Yeah,
The produce. Yeah. When it comes to when you're racing, like actually on race day, you want the carbs, you want the sugary stuff. So for race day, you're eating the things on the inside. So like the little candies and things like that. And obviously there's like race specific candies and things like that to like, you know, get your carbohydrates up really quickly. That way it's injected into the blood system and injected into the muscle so you can produce that as energy. But circling back to the supplements, I think that it's kind of a really good dichotomy, and I'm glad you kind of brought up the whole thing of nutrition and food and the crock pot and things like that. Supplements, I think we forget what supplement means, right? Like it's supplements as powders, as protein, creatine, whatever. It's there to supplement your diet, right? So
Correct.
if you can get it in, if you can get these nutrients in through your regular diet, then there's no need for these other, like all these different pills and things like that. But if you're falling short, that's when you take the supplements to be able to kind of get there, right?
Yeah.
So like, for instance, like protein goals, like just a hard and fast, easy number, is you want about a gram of protein in per pound of body weight. That's the easiest way. Like that's like the easiest kind of equation. Again, you can go a little bit under, you can go a little bit over, depending on what your fitness goals and things like that are. But like that's kind of what you want to be shooting for. And then, you know, we talked about carbohydrates earlier. Carbohydrates get a bad rap because they're very calorie dense and a lot of sugars and things like that. But that's where we get our energy from. Like, so there's kind of like this two-pronged approach where like everybody's trying to get you to cut the carbs and all that, but that's where we get our energies from. So it's about kind of finding a balance. But yeah, from a again, kind of like a high level overview, if you're going grocery shopping, stick to the outside of the grocery store. And if you're getting supplements, only get things that you need supplementation from. Those are kind of like the cold and hard rules that I kind of go by.
That's really great advice. Yeah, go around the racetrack,
Yep.
rather than going to the middle.
Yeah.
So let me just ask a couple of quick questions. So Jared, as we're coming to the end, I just want to say thank you, number one. But number two, how can they reach you? We will probably splash your website up here a couple of times, but you know, a Parkinson's patient is probably not going to approach you the same way a guy who wants to be a cyclist or an endurance training or an endurance athlete. So if they want to ask you questions, you know, any of our viewer, singular, bitter, a tad, but you know, any of our folks that chime in and like to watch the podcast,
Yeah.
what can they benefit from knowing you, Jared?
Yeah, so I mean, my door is always open. If anybody ever has any questions or anything like that, the best way to reach out to me on like social media is Instagram. My my Instagram is Sklarticus, so it's kind of a play on words because my last name is Sklar. So it's Sklartacus. You can just shoot me a message there. Also, like my email and all of that is on jaredsklar.com. I also have an email associated with the Sun Cycle on thesuncycle.com as well. So any of those emails, I have like probably too many emails for all the different things that I do, but those are the best. But probably Instagram is probably the easiest if any of your listeners have Instagram.
And you are in Santa Monica, you said, correct?
Yeah, just technically West LA, but yeah, for all intents and purposes, Santa Monica.
And you were okay during the fire, correct?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's a whole nother story. You know, okay is a loaded word, right? It's
yeah. In other words, your house didn't burn down, is what I'm.
My house didn't burn down. I was about like a quarter mile or half mile south of the evacuation zone. You know, I am really big into endurance sports. I love trail running and being up in the mountains and all of that. And so while I feel like so grateful that, you know, my house is still there and, you know, I think everybody in LA knows somebody who lost a house or, you know, all of that. You know, I spend so much time up there in the mountains and on the trails. And so, you know, the first month or two, like it was very challenging to, you know, because that's my place where I just go to let go of everything and kind of like work through like you know, for me, endurance sports is just as much mental as it is physical. And so like just being able to get there and unplug and sort through the challenges of life and all that, not having that has been very challenging. But you know, I run around on the roads and I cycle on the roads and I still teach all these classes and things like that. So, but yeah, it's been one of these things where, you know, it's going to be a slow build back up and like I said, it's just it's one of those things where just like anything else, you got to be patient with it and help everybody that you possibly can. And you know, it's this weird feeling, you know, for myself, liking going on the trail so much is knowing that they're going to be back one day, but and having them so close to me, but not being able to go up there. That's kind of like the weird mental thing that I've been going with. But yeah, it's been that was a crazy experience. Never, you know, we see fires all the time in LA, but it was never seen anything like that.
And not with those winds.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's crazy. Like, and again, I don't want to go too much down a rabbit hole, but you know, driving down, I live on Santa Monica Boulevard and like looking up in the mountains and seeing like a 50-foot flame.
Yeah.
Jarring.
Yeah. Well, you see those every day. Come on.
Yeah.
It's Los Angeles. It's a stunt show somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. But yeah, luckily we're house is you know, I have a roof over my head and you know, just there for everybody that I possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, the sense of gratitude is just I mean, it's just unthinkable. It was this unthinkable experience we went through. We live in Pasadena, so we went through Altadena. And there was a strip of road that we used to go, I want to say Muirwood, but that's not it. Anyway, it had this wonderful, healthy food, vegan style, or, you know, it was, I don't think they were completely vegan, but, you know, it was just a great restaurant, great coffee. And then there was a bike shop there that had like, I mean, bikes that when I was a kid, this just goes to show you how crazy it is. I walked up there one day, you know, the last few months, and he had, I don't know if you guys remember this, but we used to call it the creamsicle, but it was, Jared, you're probably too young, but Vinny will probably get this reference. Schwinn made a series of bikes that had high handlebars and a shifter. So you could go 1, 2, 3 in the third gear. And it had a sissy bar in the back. Do you remember all this, Vinny?
Yeah, you bet.
So this guy not only had one, but I think he had 4 of them. And I said, how much are these going for? I remember I had these as a kid. My dad bought me 2. One was gold and one was black. I think they were actually personally painted black, so they weren't professional finish. And unfortunately, I left them out on the front lawn and they were stolen. But the kid said that the bikes now are going for $2,500 to $3,000. So that's 4 bikes that melted to nothing in that bike shop during the fire. That would have been what, $12,000. I mean, that's just painful. This young guy ran this little shop. It was a good little bike shop, and at the end of the street was a guy who had a hat, like a custom hat, like a Johnny Depp hat or a Tommy Lee hat or something like that. And I thought, these businesses aren't like just burned; they're gone.
Yeah.
He stood in front of Ace Hardware, which was a hugely complex building to navigate in Altadena, or True Value. I'm not sure which one it was. It's gone, and there's just a giant hole, and you can see all the way through to the next neighborhood. Yeah. And I mean, I laugh only because the alternative is to cry, but just to see how eerie it is at dusk when the power doesn't come on.
The one
go
thing
ahead.
I would say is, in times like that, it like obviously devastation is at such a high level, but it is so inspiring to see everybody come together. Like that
It's wonderful.
Like that was the one thing that like really inspires a ton of hope, is like seeing how many people, not only in LA, but across the country, like people were flying in from, I think it was pretty well publicized that like the Canadian firefighters were flying in, and like all these people like donating, doing the fire relief shows and all these things. So like that was super inspiring to see everybody kind of come together in such a dire time. So.
Yeah, I can close a little bit with a little bit of an uplifting story. My nephew was supposed to get married in January, and the venue burnt down. He was getting married on a Friday night. It burnt down Wednesday. So he had 24 hours to find a new venue. And I'll give a plug to the Ritz-Carlton in Marina del Rey, because they couldn't find anywhere. And people were talking to them, but the Ritz-Carlton said to them, lay out what you wanted and tell us what you were going to pay for it, and we'll match both.
Wow.
And it was a beautiful wedding. You would never know it if we'll put it this way, people who just flew in that day, I mean, LA was still crazy, but you had no reason to believe that this wedding was put together in 24 hours. It was that good. And, I really, actually, the New York Times picked up the story.
Really?
Did they really?
Yeah, the New York Times picked up the story, and I'm really glad they called the event coordinator there and got her name and published her name, because she's the one who said, we'll match whatever you were going to do.
Yeah.
And, we should be like that all the time, but it's really touching when times are really down and somebody does something like that.
But, I think it's like, and again, this is just my own point of view, but having been involved with communicating with people and, been in customer service, whether you're in the service of a major client like Universal Studios, or you're in the service of like you're on the wait staff, people forget that these are people, and that when you greet them because you're having a bad day and you dump your stuff on them, it's like we talked earlier about, I forget what the exact emotion was, but you said something like, well, it's the old adage where I can't make you happy, but I can make you happier.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be happy inside before I can ever get to the point of making you happier, but I can't make you happy. We'll never be able to do that. And I think that that's true with the way people approach people today. It's like, if you approach people with an attitude, or if you're on the other side of the counter, and I saw this funny thing on Instagram about a guy just kind of telling it as it is, and it wasn't a joke. I think he was very serious, but he goes, dude, guy who stands at the golf shop booking times, why are you angry? You had a job that's out on a golf course all day long. And he's like, what could be worse than that? I mean, it's like, why are you so angry? And I think this is, people are forgetting why they're so angry. It's either politically they're angry, but are they really? How are you affecting it, and how is it affecting you? And I just think about that, and it's like, I think that we have really come into this period of time where we're forgetting that civility and straightforwardness and compassion are the things that get you to the next level, as opposed to just going, look, I'm in a pinch. Yeah, we got this room for 10,000. Great, done. It's like people are having to deal with more things, I think, than just the ability of making a handshake transaction. If that makes any sense. It does in my head, but.
Well, the shirt I wore on the first show, I got to dig it out again. I get compliments every time I wear it out. It just says, be kind. It's really not that hard. And, be kind is really big. And people walk up to me in the grocery store, getting out of my car, and they go, great shirt. So I kind of like wearing it because it puts a smile on people's face because, remind them,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Jared, great guest, great energy. Thank you for coming on. We hope we can have you again. We'll
Come back soon.
different angle and have you come back again. But I appreciate you taking the time. I know you waited a long time to come on, but we're back in hiatus and we're ready to go. And I really appreciate this. I think this is a really good show, and I think you brought stuff to a lot of people. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, anytime. And I just want to thank you guys again. I know this has been a long time coming, so I'm like really thankful that we were able to finally have this conversation. And I just had a total blast. And again, if anybody has any questions or anything like that, like I am a total open door policy. So no question is out of bounds. Happy to help anybody who has any questions about fitness, health, triathlon, endurance sports, 5Ks, anything like that. So
Go to Sklar. Sklarticus?
Spartacus, yeah. Spartacus and Sklar.
I'm so glad you made that easy for everybody, Jared. That's just wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Thank you very much. Have a grand evening.
Okay.
God bless you all and take good care of yourselves and your friends.